Well, The Chosen Season 2 premiered today on Easter Sunday, and we've got thoughts about it. We've got a review coming, and I've actually got some other people joining me for this first review. So I'm excited for that. I'm not going to say anything too long right now. I'm just going to say we're going to cut to a reaction, then we're going to cut to the review. I'm excited to talk about this episode. Okay, well, we just finished The Chosen Season 2, Episode 1, and as you can see, Dallas is literally still there talking. Sorry, Dallas, we got muted. You muted real quick just to do this real quick. But I'm going to go through everybody here and just ask them their one-sentence recap of Episode 1. Brienne, what'd you think?
I thought it was really good, and that was a great way to start the season.
There you go. Zach?
It was great. Just like the first season.
All right. Olivia? There you go. George?
I think it had funny moments, but it was actually quite serious and handled that very well.
There you go. Steven?
Yeah, I agree with George. A lot of powerful moments, a lot of good points, and they also had a lot of comic relief.
Yeah, really good, real good. And I would ask my mom, but she only walked in for the very end. So, there you go. There you go. Perfect. All right, everybody, so we are back for The Chosen Season 2, Episode 1. Real quick, can y'all just introduce yourselves? Because y'all are new to this channel and stuff. So just real quickly, just tell us who you are.
My name's Olivia.
I am Zach.
Yeah, and they're our friends from Bible study and stuff. And they just hung out with us Easter, and they just watched the premiere with us on YouTube and stuff. And so we just asked them to join us. And we're not asking them to talk a whole lot because, it's kind of on the cuff and stuff. But we are just going to ask them some questions early on, and then if they want to cut in or anything, they're more than welcome to. But basically, we're just going to talk about The Chosen Episode 1. We're not going to do a super in-depth breakdown like we have for other videos. Maybe we'll do that in the future, but this one, the goal is to just give a broad overview of the episode, right? So don't worry, this is not a 3-hour video, but I guess if you're watching this on YouTube, you already know that. So, nice. I'm David, this is Brienne.
Yeah.
With that being said, we're just going to do some introductory questions. Real quick, I know we actually already addressed this in the little video that I'm going to show at the beginning of this, but what did you think about the episode?
I really liked it. I thought it was a little bit confusing at first because I don't know the Bible that well, but, yeah.
Okay.
That was good.
Yeah, what about you?
I was kind of lost at the beginning as well. But as it went into the episode, it was a little bit easier to kind of go along with it.
Okay, yeah,
So
what about you?
episode.
Yeah, what about you, Brienne?
I liked it a lot. I think it upheld the same standard that season 1 had.
Mhm.
I was hoping that they were going to kind of keep on the same level, and that it wasn't going to, awkwardly dip off or anything like that. So I think they're still going on the same track, which I'm excited about.
Yeah, I've got to say that I did really enjoy the episode, but kind of like y'all, for the first half of the episode, I got kind of nervous because it seemed like it was paced different almost. It was kind of like, I was kind of confused at what they were doing. It seemed like things were almost kind of awkward. But by the end of the episode, I think that they kind of saved it, and I kind of figured out what they were doing with all of it at the beginning part. But overall, I think it was really good, and it's got me excited for what's going forward. But I think really one of the things that I noticed here is it's difficult to tell the story of Jesus in this format, where it's like a multiple season thing, because there's not clear breaks in the story of Jesus where it's like, okay, end of season 1, end of season 2. Basically, the gospel accounts are always building up to the crucifixion and then the resurrection. And so they're kind of having to create these little moments here. And so I think it makes sense why each season I can almost expect that each season it's going to be kind of weird. They're just setting stuff up. But that being said, question number 2, what was your favorite scene of the episode?
I really liked the last scene. I think it caught my attention just hearing John, spoiler alert, I guess.
Oh, yeah, that's fine.
Okay, but, yeah, I just really liked John, finding out that, this is Jesus, but he's also God.
Yeah.
It's very emotional.
Yeah, really cool. What about you?
Near the ending when Jesus was reading out of the scroll.
Scrolls?
Yeah.
Okay.
See, I like that scene too, but to be different, I have another one.
Oh.
Yeah, so that way we can mix it up a
different.
little bit. So the one scene, it was like a super small scene, but it was right when the guy was getting healed that had the broken leg, and they did that pan on Jesus whenever he was waking up. It was a really small scene, but you could see it was super sweet because you see how he's so all-knowing, and he has so much power, and you can see it within that one scene, but he's also so humble at the same time. And yeah, I just really liked it. It's super powerful, but it's also like, oh, that's Jesus. It's kind of cool.
Yeah,
So,
and I like the little
liked it.
moments of character building they have in that scene because, you know, John and them are like, oh my gosh, you can heal from a distance?
Yeah.
Like, as us, like, as Christians, we're like, of course you can. But you gotta realize, these people don't know that. Like,
Right.
every day their minds are being blown, like, oh my gosh, this guy's awesome. And like the scene y'all are talking about, Jesus literally tells John, I am who I am.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he just identified himself as God. And John's like, what? Like, wait, what? Because he just said, I'm man, but then he says, I am who I am. You're like, wait, so you're man, but you're God? Like, I don't know. That was really cool to me. I thought that was cool. But my favorite scene has got to be, and we're going to talk about this in a little bit, but my favorite scene was when Jesus was rebuking James and John.
Oh,
Because
good.
this is the first time that we got to see Jesus actually get angry, but I loved how the actor did it. Because he immediately afterwards, like, they immediately get over it, and they're, like, joking around and stuff.
Yeah.
That's cool. Because a lot of the times, you know, you see people, like, getting into this conflict, and they just, like, hold it against each other. But these people have such respect for Jesus, and he has respect for them to where he can lash out at them, just, like, rightfully so, and then they humbly accept it, and they're like, okay, let's move on. And so I just thought that was really cool. I really like that scene. And really, I think the name of this episode was called Thunder. And so it was really built, that was supposed to be kind of the climax of the scene, because it was about them getting the name Sons of Thunder. But then that brings us to our third question, very quickly. You'll notice these questions aren't as quickly as I talk a lot, as the people in my videos let me know. But who's your favorite disciple so far?
I would have to say James and John because they remind me of myself. Where it's like when Jesus confronted them, they were very oblivious. They were like, what did you teach us? You know, and also with the passion, like they had so much passion and fire for wanting to do something. But
Okay.
Peter, definitely.
Peter. Why Peter? You know?
From season 1.
Okay. Yeah. Peter, you get a lot of character development for Peter in season 1. He's a really cool guy.
I like Matthew.
Yeah.
Matthew's cool.
Yeah. I mean,
he's kind of like the one that they kind of like push aside because, you know, he's a tax collector. So it's kind of cool how they kind of highlight him a little bit more. And also how you can tell that he has, like, the way they characterize him, I think it's cool too. Because he kind of has, like, autism or, like, Asperger's or something like that. So I think that's kind of cool how they did his characterization too. But he's also just a cool character in general. So.
Yeah. Like Olivia was pointing out, I do relate most to James and John. Because there's this, you just see, you know, they get these tasks and they immediately become proud about it and self-righteous and they just think they know everything. It's like, I relate to them, but I think that Matthew is still my favorite character just because, I don't know if he's my favorite disciple. I just really like how the actor plays him.
Yeah.
Because it's amazing, like, whenever you just see the actor talking in real life and stuff, and you compare it, you realize this guy's got some acting chops. He's really, really good. And I just, in this episode, you don't really get a whole lot of him, but what you get, it's really, really funny, but also really good, and you're getting this idea that there's going to be some problems with Matthew. But I like that, and you expect that, especially because he's a tax collector and stuff, and they laid that groundwork a lot in season 1. But I do think, in agreement with like you and stuff, I think James and John will definitely quickly become some of my favorite, because, I mean, John's my favorite gospel, absolutely. But we didn't get as much development for them in season 1. Whereas really the main focus is in season 1 were like Matthew and Peter and then Nicodemus and stuff. And so I think that's why Matthew, I'm like, oh, I like Matthew so much. But James and John, from what I see in this episode, I like them a whole lot too. With that being said, those are the main questions I wanted to ask. And now real quick, we're just going to talk about a few things in the episode. We're not going to do this in-depth breakdown like scene by scene or anything like we've done in other videos. I just wanted to talk about stuff that stuck out to me. And then if y'all have anything y'all want to say, feel free to interject. And if y'all don't want to, that's fine as well. But basically, the first thing I just wanted to address, we're watching the live stream, and I just thought it was funny that the first thing that we see, it showed like this recap of season 1, and then before the episode aired, it just said, Big James will be played by this new actor. I don't think they needed to do that, but I just found it really funny because I think this is the third time they've had to recast. Well, it was the second time they had to recast him, but this is like the third person to play Big James, and it seems like this guy, like, it's a hard part. Like, people just keep getting busy. Like, I don't think anybody's leaving for certain reasons. It's just like they're busy, and I just thought it was funny that they did that, and so I wanted to mention it because that was it helped the experience for me. But then the main thing I just wanted to like just ask y'all about, if y'all have anything to say, is this opening scene, which we get, it bookends both sides, but the opening scene with John interviewing all the apostles, and you can tell like they're a little bit older and stuff. They got the gray hair and stuff. What did y'all think about that?
I know we kind of already talked about it, but it also confused me. And what got me was whenever he was interviewing Mary, and she was like, "Oh, those memories are something I'm gonna hold in my heart." And I was like, "Oh yeah," and then I was like, "Oh wait, that's not in John." Like I'm kind of confused. So that kind of confused me off the bat, and I was like, I don't really know what's going on here, but cool.
Yeah. This is where the chosen people, I think they were trying to subvert expectations. That's like an ongoing thing in modern cinema and everything. People like subverting the audience's expectation, and I think that they knew that Bible nerds like us would be watching this show, and so they purposefully, I mean, I could be totally mistaken this, but it seems like they set up the opening scene to make it seem like Luke was the person interviewing these people, because if you read the Gospel of Luke, you know that he created this gospel by interviewing the apostles, interviewing people. Like, it seems like he interviewed Mary. And so, literally, there's things that Mary says in this that are directly quoted in the Gospel of Luke. She says, well, it says that Mary took these things and treasured them in her heart, and Mary says that line in here. And so this thing, I was like, oh, this is cool, it's Luke. And then it cuts to John, and you're like, I see what you did there. They're basically just trying to mess with us, and it turns out it's John, and they reveal that this is shortly after the death of James. And that is actually something that's biblical. James is the only apostle that we actually have his martyrdom mentioned in the Bible, because he's the first of the 12 apostles killed. And that's mentioned in the book of Acts. And it's really interesting there. And so you can see where this is placed. And they even mention he's not going to be the last of us to die. He's just the first one. And so that's kind of sad. And I did like that they included the fact that like they were Mary and John were referring to each other as mother and son. And that's something that, I don't know if y'all been following this in like the Gospel of John, like reading through the Gospel of John, but at the crucifixion, Jesus turns to John and says, hey, here's your mother and here's your son. And so that's why they have that relationship. So I just thought that was cool. You can tell they thought through this stuff.
Yeah.
And so I just wanted to address that scene because I thought it was cool. They did say, going into the episode, they're like, hey, don't miss the first 60 seconds. That's why. Like, I was wondering, like, what could it possibly be?
Yeah.
And then the moment I saw, like, an older version of these characters, I was like, got it. Because if you missed the first 60 seconds, you would not know what the heck was going on. So, but then what I wanted to do is just talk about, like, some of my favorite stuff from the episode. I just, like, wrote down just things, and usually they're relational, like, just, like, two characters, how they relate to one another. I just thought it was kind of interesting. And the first one that I wrote down was Thomas and Matthew, because this is where, you know, Matthew's never met Thomas, Thomas never met Matthew, because Matthew was not at the wedding in Cana whenever Jesus turned the water to wine. But Thomas and Rama, they come to Sychar, or Sikar, how they say it. They came and they met each other, and immediately these two just don't get along. And I just thought that was interesting because they're both very logical and logistical and like they're both very mathematical almost in their approach to stuff. Or I guess Matthew's the mathematical guy and Thomas is the logistical guy. And I just thought it was kind of funny seeing them interact because you could tell, oh, okay, there's going to be some, you know, there's some tension here. Yeah. They're both just like trying to debate immediately right off the bat. They're just like going back and forth. He's like, well, that doesn't seem to make sense. Matthew's like, yeah, it does to me. And I just really enjoyed that. And once again, I like the character of Matthew. And so I'm like, anything with Matthew, I'm probably going to like. So it's going to be my favorite stuff. And then, or did y'all have anything y'all want to say about that? Sorry. I can just keep going. I need to stop. Anything to say?
My favorite part was whenever Matthew opened the door, and he's like, oh, what are you here for? He's like, I'm here looking for Jesus. He's like, and so is everyone else. And then he closes the door. I was like, oh, that's the best part.
Yeah.
That was it.
That's funny. And then James and John. Those are the other relationship I thought was cool, because we get really two things here. We get their pride, which is really, you see this at the beginning when, you know, they're, what's the thing they're doing? They're sowing the field, right? They're sowing the field. And they're like, oh man, Jesus gave us this thing. Like, and you can tell from the beginning, they're not getting the message.
Yeah.
Like, everybody watching it knows, I don't think that's the message Jesus wanted to teach you. But they just get like, all like, oh yeah, too big for themselves. They're like, yeah, we're important. And they immediately go throughout the whole episode thinking that they're the leaders of the group. Which, interestingly enough, they kind of will be. Because really it's going to be Peter, James, and John who are kind of the leaders of the 12. And so really they will be there, but Jesus, he's going to have to teach them some stuff to get there. And so I think it's cool how you see this forming there. But, so they got this pride issue, which Jesus will call out later. Absolutely amazing scene. I love it. Like I said, favorite scene of the whole thing. But then you also have the scene where they're like figuring out about the miracles, which you mentioned, when Jesus is waking up and he's saying, oh yeah, I just love whenever families like have these good moments. They're like, what family? And then Jesus just like, he's like, and they're like, the guy can walk? And like, I like how they're already picking up on Jesus' little things. They're like, oh, he performed another miracle. Wait, you can do it from a distance? Wow, that's crazy. And then he's like, you'll be able to do it too. And I like how they laid the groundwork there. Because what he's doing, he's actually quoting something that's mentioned in the Gospel of John. Like, you will do works that I've done and greater works than these. That's quoted in the Last Supper discourse in John 15, 16, 17, somewhere in there. It's quoted in the Gospel of John, but he says it here to them, and he says, you'll be able to do that one day. And that's laying the groundwork for later on. They're going to be like, Jesus, give us that authority now so we can rain fire down on them.
Yeah.
And it's just really good scene. I really like how they address that. But I'm not going to linger on it too much because it'll be a really long video. Y'all don't want that? Maybe I'll do. But if so, we'll do a theological breakdown. It'll be great. And then Rhema and her father. I just like the interaction there. Rhema is Thomas's gal pal friend, right? Rhema's father's like, hey, I'm not stupid. I know that you want to marry my daughter, but Thomas is in denial right now. I think Rhema's in denial right now, but they're very close to one another. And I just really like the whole interaction there, mainly because if you've watched any of my other videos, I like whenever people talk about the cost of discipleship. Because I think a lot of churches nowadays don't emphasize that enough. A lot of times we're too focused on manipulating people to Christ, and we're like, oh, just pray this prayer and come on. Whereas Jesus, he's like in the Gospels, he's always telling people like, hey, count the cost before you follow me. And you see that with Rhema, where she's literally having to do the thing where, like, deny my family to follow Jesus. And I thought that they were going to quote that passage where Jesus says you have to be willing to deny your father and mother and stuff, but they didn't do that, and that actually made me appreciate it more because they weren't being too on the nose with it, right? But as I was watching the scene, I was like, there's scripture to defend what's happening here. He's saying, yeah, like, I thought that they could also go the other way where they say, you know what, obey your father, just stay with him. But instead he's like, no. I ask very difficult things of those who follow me. And I was like, okay, that was really cool. Do you all have anything to say about that? Rhema? Okay, cool. And then to the leadership debates, I just think that's the thing that we're going to see throughout the rest of the episodes. Just, you know, people going back and forth, who's the leader of the group? Because I think that's a very natural thing, and that's something that you do see in the Gospels. And it's a debate that literally goes on to the night that Jesus is arrested. Like, these guys are not going to learn this lesson anytime soon. So right now, James and John were humbled about it. But Peter's going to have to be humbled. Andrew's going to have to be humbled. Literally at the night that, right before Jesus probably gets up and washes their feet, they're having a debate about who's going to be the greatest. You know, so literally for 3 years, they're going to be having this debate, which is very applicable to us, right? Because God can constantly tell us, hey, it's not about how awesome you are. It's not about how good you are. It's not about raising yourself up. Yet every day we're still like, I'm so awesome. Can't wait to raise myself up. And so that's going to be an ongoing thing. And then I put Jesus rebuking James and John, but I've already addressed that. I really like that scene. I like that Jesus lashes out. I think it's really cool. And then, so that's my favorite stuff about this. I just have like notes that I'm just kind of going through here, and then if you all have anything to say, just go for it. But I just want to talk about some Jesus quotes. I just wrote down certain Jesus quotes that stuck out to me in the episode, and I was just going to go through them pretty quickly we don't have to go into too much context or anything. I just thought they were cool, and I thought maybe whenever I do these reviews of these episodes, let's put some good Jesus quotes in there, because I thought it was good. The first one is whenever he's talking to Rhema's father, and he says, I ask a lot of those who follow me, and I ask little of those who do not. I thought that was a good line. I just thought, you know, he's like, hey, I ask a lot of those who follow me. He doesn't deny that, right? He's like, hey, I'm not denying the fact that I'm asking your daughter to do a lot, but I'm also asking little of those who don't follow me. Like, I can't require you to do anything. And that's the thing that, as Christians, we probably need to learn. Because a lot of the times, we treat... Like, it's a thing where, yes, we need to make people recognize their sin and their need for Jesus, but we really can't force them to submit to Christ until they have chosen to submit to him, right? Like, for right now, they're slaves to their sin. Once they come to Christ, then it's like, okay, now you got to answer to Jesus. But until then, you know, he can't ask you to do anything. All he's asking is come to him. And so I thought that was cool. Another thing, this is whenever he makes the joke right after, whenever they're having the meal with the guy who's eventually going to be healed. And the guy just told him, like, all this horrible stuff he did. And then I think James or John or something was like, yeah, well, we should probably get up and go back to the place because, you know, it might be dangerous. And then Jesus gets up. He's like, yeah, you never know who's going to be out there this time of night. And then it just gets, like, awkwardly silent. And Jesus looks around. He's like, what, too soon? And I don't know. I just thought this. I like that they include Jesus' sense of humor because that's another thing that's absent from... You'll notice that a lot of the things that stick out to me in this show is because it's absent in other forms of Christian media. Jesus usually has no sense of humor or personality and other stuff, and so I like that they have that. And it seems to be that his sense of humor is exactly like mine, and so I'm like, even better. And then whenever he's rebuking James and John, and he's like saying, oh, you just want people to know, like, you know, you want them to feel unworthy? And he says, what, do you think that you're worthy? let me tell you something, you're not. Like, he just calls it out.
Yeah.
Let me tell you something, you're not worthy. That's the reason I'm here. And I don't know. I was just really feeling it when he was rebuking them, because I think that God has had to say the same stuff to me every day of my life. Literally, that's why a lot of times people be like, so, how's your walk with God going? Usually I use the metaphor that he's been spanking me around a lot. Because that's usually how it feels. Because he's usually just kind of smacking me around, being like, you're not worthy. It's about me being worthy. It's about pointing people to me. And I like that they included that, because usually in our culture we try to picture or portray Jesus as this, just, I don't know, a guy who sugarcoats everything and just puts the icing and the cherry on top. Whereas this Jesus, he just speaks the truth. And he's like, it's not about how worthy you are. It's about how worthy I am. He doesn't say that, but he's pointing out it's not about lifting yourself up. It's about lifting me up. It's about lifting God up, pointing to him. So I like that they included that line, because it's also delivered with an element of grace. So it's like he's not saying it out of just being mean. And so this is just, once again, credibility, I guess, whatever, to the actor. Because the actor does a very good job at this. I don't think it's easy to deliver a line like that without coming across as proud and arrogant.
Yes.
But he does it in such a way to where he's still got that air of humility about him, and he's got that authority. Like, it really is probably just a miracle that this guy's able to portray this, because I could not imagine ever delivering a line like that without seeming like the most arrogant and cocky person and rudest person in the world. But he does it where you're like, no, it makes sense that he's doing this, and I get it. And so I appreciate that he did that. And then obviously my favorite line is when he says, I am who I am. Because him and John just talking, he's like, oh yeah. John says something where he says something about no man, and Jesus says, I am a man. And then they're still talking about stuff, and then Jesus turns around and he says, John, I am who I am. Get it? Because that's how God identified himself to Moses in Exodus. And John's just like,
Mic drop.
wait, hold up. And then somebody says something, he's like, we're not ready yet.
Yeah.
It's like, he's like, wait, I'm standing in the presence of God? And then you see that, obviously, John made that connection, because then, in the following scene, which y'all were talking about and stuff, you have the back and forth where Jesus is reading from Genesis, and John is saying, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was with God in the beginning. Through him all things were made. And you're like, okay, he got the point. Right? That'd be really disappointing, because a lot of times we don't get the point, right? God says something clearly to us, and we're like, I don't get it. Whereas John got it. Like, literally, he's standing there and Jesus is reading this stuff, and he's tearing up, listening. And you're realizing this guy, like, he realizes that he is hearing this book being read from the mouth that originally spoke it. And he's like, oh my gosh. He's just like tearing up. And I just thought that was amazing.
So cool.
Yeah. It's just, I don't know. Like, the more I talk about it, the more I'm actually liking the episode. Because I do think, like I said, the original part, like, the beginning part was paced kind of weird, but later on, it really just, I was like, okay, I see where they're heading with this, and it was good. And then the last thing I was going to address, and this is, I'm not spending any time on this, I was just going to address things that are from the Bible. And basically what you need to know is this entire episode here takes place in the verses that immediately follow the verses that the last season ended on. So we were in John chapter 4 at the end of the last season. This is also in John chapter 4. I didn't write down the exact verses or anything, but this is from John chapter 4. It's just a few verses. It just says that Jesus stayed in Samaria and they received him. Then it moves on. The other thing, there's three things here. Jesus also gives the parable of the lost sheep. Whenever he's teaching there, he says, if the guy, he leaves the 99 sheep to go get the one, and then he actually applies it later on. And so that is also something from the Bible. Jesus used a parable from the Bible, and he applied it. And then the third thing was the fire from heaven scene, right? Where it says that Samaritans did not receive Jesus very well. And so James and John come up, and they're like, hey, let's call down fire from heaven. And whenever you're reading it in the Gospels, it's actually a very strange account. And people were speculating that they were going to actually address that in this episode, because the episode's called Thunder, and people usually associate this story with why they're called the Sons of Thunder. Because they make claims like that. And they're like, let's just call down fire from heaven. And Jesus is like, that's not how we do things around here. But I was really interested to see how they portrayed that. And I don't know about y'all, but I was really impressed at how they made it feel very natural.
Yeah.
Because to me, when I read it in the Gospels, I'm like, who do you think you are? Like, who do you think you are to possibly think that you could call down fire from heaven? Like, that's the most random thing. Like, I would never think that. I would never be like, I can do it. But Jesus tells them, like, you're going to do the works that I can do. You're going to do greater works. And they're saying, you know what? We're going to defend your honor. Just tell us we can do it now. And they deserve to burn. And that's when Jesus turns and he says, y'all all deserve to burn. Mm-hmm. And like he doesn't say exactly that, but he says, none of y'all are worthy. Mm-hmm. And so those are the three things that are from the Bible, right? It's in John chapter 4. There's the parable of the lost sheep and then the fire from heaven. Mm-hmm. And that's all I wanted to say about the episode, right? There's me rambling on for a little bit as y'all listen. This is usually how our Bible studies go, unfortunately. But do y'all have anything else y'all want to say about The Chosen before we just wrap this video up?
I'm excited to see what they're going to do with the rest of the season.
Mm-hmm.
Episode 2 and 3, they said they're going to release them kind of close together, so that's exciting.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. All right. Anything from y'all?
I just think that it's really cool to see like the characters develop and come to life, like in a color that I've never seen them before. Yeah, I can only get so much from like reading the Bible.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that sounds wrong, but like I just think that this helps me, and it also makes me want to read it back again. Like reading from Genesis to John, it's like, whoa, I want to read those word for word again and like study that. So it's really cool. Yeah,
it's actually really unique because it's something that like what they're doing with the show is something you can't really get perfectly from just reading it, right? So it's actually really cool. Like it's almost preaching a sermon in a way that sometimes like they're doing visually what sometimes audible words can't do, to where you're getting the cut back and forth between Genesis and John, right? Whereas I mean, I think we did that in our Bible study where I was like, okay, well when he says in the beginning, he's referencing Genesis, and we went back and forth, but you can only keep up with that so long, just me talking about it. But you have the visual representation, you're like, oh, I get it, and like literally they're being read side by side, and it's going back and forth, and he's making the connections, and you're making the connections with him. And so I think your response there is it's the proper response. Like I think the show is good for people who are getting into Scripture, because it should give you the hunger to read Scripture and be like, oh wow, I want to like read the story, and it shows you that it's an exciting story. Yeah. I think a lot of the times people just think that the Bible is just this boring book, but really, the Bible is the most amazing story ever. Like it's better than any, like I don't care, like Avengers Endgame, all the MCU stuff, it's interesting, but literally read the Bible because it is the coolest story, and it also just so happens to be true. Like that's the cool thing. Imagine if like all these other shows that you love were true. That's the Bible. So that's really cool. And so if you're brand new to the Bible, The Chosen's good for you because it gives you the hunger to read it. But also, I think, like for me, like I've been studying the Bible since I was little. I think the show's good because it helps almost soften my heart. Because a lot of the times I've read the Bible so much that I just like, I just read through the verses without actually processing them. I'm like, oh yeah, I've read this before. It's almost like a pride thing. Unintentionally. It's like a subconscious pride where you just read through it and the words are dead to your ears because you've read them before. And you're like, okay, yeah, this is that verse. Whereas this show is like helping you draw back in. You're like, oh, I'm actually being drawn into the story. And so I think it's very good, whether you're starting Scripture, whether you've been studying it for a long time, it helps you get back to the heart of Scripture and realize that this is a story that God has given to us to help draw us to Him. It's not a story about us, right? That's what Jesus would say to John and James, right? He's like, it's not about you. It's about me, right? So it's about, not me, about Jesus. But it's about Jesus. And so when we read the Bible, we should probably take the same lesson. It's not about me. It's about Jesus. And this show does a very good job of pointing you to that. And I've got to say, it gives my stamp of approval when it comes to theology. Because that's my main thing that I always address in these videos. Theology is super important to me. I want to make sure that it is theologically accurate. And they're doing a very good job of that. And I was nervous going into season 2 that they would pull back. They did not. They actually hammered down. And I'm like, all right, that's good. But those are my thoughts about The Chosen season 2. Okay, real quick, we're going to do a ranking. If you just like a letter grade, right? A to F. If you had to give it from an A to an F, what would you give the episode? All right? What would you give it?
I would give it a B. I think that season 1 really like clicked for me more as like someone who is just learning a lot. And then this episode, it really threw me off. But like I almost want to give it an A because at the end, like everything kind of made sense for me.
Yeah. All right. What about you?
It was the same thing.
Okay.
Exactly the same.
So B.
Yeah.
Okay. What about you?
I can give it a B+, just because I think I think I'm always someone who doesn't want to ever give the first episode an A because I'm
Yeah.
like, oh, we have 7 more episodes later. Like, I'm not going to give the first one 5 stars. I'm going to give the first one A. But it was really good. Like, B+ does not really, like, degrade it in any way. I think I just don't want to give it, like, the full ranking because I know The Chosen.
Yeah.
And I know that, like, Sermon on the Mount's coming. And, like, there's so many other things that are going to be coming in this season. So I say a solid B+. But it was really good. And I liked it a lot still, even though it's...
First half of the episode, I give it B-. Second half of the episode, A+. Theology, A+. If you take all those, average them, what's what? Probably a B+, maybe. So I'm gonna give it a B+. I'm just breaking it. See, I'm the Matthew of the group here. I'm just like, I'm doing math over here. Yeah, I'd say B+. So we got BB, B+, B+. Come on, Chosen, step your game up. Oh, no, don't worry. It's still really good. I mean, it's a good B, I think. But that being said, this has been a long enough video. I'm done talking, and that usually means it's time to wrap up the video. So, if you haven't subscribed to this channel, wow, I was kind of just forgetting what to say. If you haven't subscribed to this channel, please do so. Please like this video. Please subscribe to this channel. I already said that. I meant to say comment on this video. I'm really tired, guys. Subscribe to the channel, like the video, comment on the video. My boy Zach over here, he's been commenting on the video. You should follow in his stead. You know, comment on the video. Let us know what you thought about episode 1 of season 2 of The Chosen. Let us know what your favorite thing is. Answer the same questions I asked them. I like having conversations with y'all whenever y'all comment here, so please just let me know what you thought of the episode. Even if you didn't watch the whole video. I mean, I guess you wouldn't see this unless you watched the whole video. But maybe you got this far and you already commented. Thank you for that. And if you made it through the whole thing, thank you for listening to me. I talk a lot, and so just I'm proud of you. But it's time to wrap up. I am David.
I'm Brienne.
Zach.
Olivia.
And this has been Now Let's Be Honest About Movies. We will see you later. Bye.